Hi everyone, welcome to our first video at takeover.ca. My name is Albert Oliveira. I just want to give you a little bit of background about myself. I've been in the business for over 24 years. I've sold Japanese brand, North American brand, and lately the luxury brand of European cars such as Mercedes-Benz, Jaguar, and Land Rover. I decided about a year ago that I was going to take myself out of the business as far as being a salesperson and dedicate myself to offering better quality customer service. So I decided to, with the collaboration of a great creative mind, he designed a wonderful website for takeover.ca, and I also took it upon myself to become basically a broker where we want to get you the best deal without you having to run around and do all the hassle that you have to do to get a new car. So we offer various services at takeover.ca. But today we're going to go through a few points. What is a lease takeover and what is a finance takeover? And in that respect, hopefully I will be able to help you out with some tips that I have for you. And here's our first slide. What is a lease takeover or finance takeover? A lease takeover is a lease in which presently is being held by a client. That could be a corporation or an individual that has the vehicle and is leasing it right now. Usually the terms go anywhere from 24 months right up to 48 months. You can actually exercise your right to switch that lease at any point in time during that period. And it allows you to transfer the lease. There's some costs affiliated with it, and we're going to go through that. And I just want to let you know that it gives you a better choice than having to have a whole bunch of negative equity transferred onto your next lease or your next finance. So a lease takeover and a finance takeover, sometimes it's a great option for you on it. This means that if you want to find a suitable client to take the responsibility of financial liability, and also they will have to take the upkeep upon themselves. So maintenance, making sure that the vehicle, if it gets into any accidents, the dust gets repaired, it all becomes their responsibility from that point on. So you're off the hook once the lease is transferred and it has been accepted by the leasing company. There is a procedure of transferring the lease. You can transfer a lease or a finance. The biggest difference is that one or the other, the finance, when you transfer finance, it's just as if you did a cash sale. Taxes are due. So basically the government will grab you again for having your 13% sales tax, HST, on the vehicle. You can't get away from it. You can transfer the obligation of the finance. Your payment, let's say for example, was $500 on the documents. You take the $500 over, but they will collect the taxes from you at the time of the transfer. It has to be done through a dealership. The benefit of a lease is that you do not have to pay the taxes again. That is the beauty of doing a lease. You transfer a lease, your payment is $500 tax in. You assume the responsibility as a lease takeover person that you're paying $500 and that's it. There is a transfer cost affiliated with all transfers, as I mentioned before, but then again, that's all part of the negotiation that we have between the present leasee and the possible leaseor. We're going to go to our next slide where I'll just go into a little bit more depth. Once your vehicle has been listed on a website, first of all, one of our professional consultants will take care of all the phone calls. There is a lot of people that are serious about taking lease over, but there is a lot of people that unfortunately are just shopping, endless shopping, I would call it. Sometimes in the business they call tire kickers. I think that everybody's a buyer. I take everyone seriously. They may not be ready today, but they will possibly be ready 8 months from now or a year from now to take over a vehicle. So you never discard anyone that actually calls our website. You have to, given that if it's a company and you're transferring a lease or a finance, it may be a little bit more convoluted to do it because you will need to actually get a corporation needs to submit a lot more paperwork than an individual, but it's always based on filling out a credit application, getting the new leaseor approved, and then basically assuming all responsibility on that lease. You probably noticed that I mentioned incentive before or finance transfer costs. There is an incentive that you can offer for somebody to take a lease, and that's what makes it better for the person getting out of the lease. Sometimes when you go into a dealership and you have a lease and you have an outstanding amount, which is usually the case, a negative equity, the negative equity is huge, probably $10,000, $15,000. I have a case right now where the customer is actually $20,000 with negative equity. Well, we just listed his vehicle and we can possibly get him out with a lot less money than that. Makes it a lot easier and it keeps the transaction clean. You start with a new lease as the real value for the vehicle instead of just carrying negative equity and negative equity to the next deal. Okay, we're going to go to the next slide on here. I mentioned transfer costs previously. Every transfer has an associated cost. These costs range anywhere from $595 right up to $1,695. There's two costs that are affiliated with that. One is an administration fee that the dealership charges because they have to take time. They have to go through paperwork. They have to fill out your credit application. And also the finance company tells you that you need to pay a certain fee to be able to transfer that lease. So the combination of both could amount up to $1,600, $1,700, but it's far less than what you would pay if you actually have to get out of a negative equity lease and then have to transfer that $8,000 or $10,000 or $15,000 to your new vehicle, which makes it not a pretty sight. Okay. Once the transfer of the finance has been approved, you will have to do, in the case of a finance transfer, you will have to perform a safety on your vehicle. The reason that you're performing a safety on your vehicle is because the vehicle is in your name. You are transferring the loan aspect to a different person, but the vehicle is in your name. Anytime the vehicle changes names, you have to basically get a safety in Ontario. It applies to many provinces, and everybody has different perspectives on it and what we need to do, and we will help you along with all the steps. That's where we come in. We take you and guide you and tell you exactly what needs to be done so everything goes through flawless. On a lease, it's different. The vehicle is under the leasing company. So the only thing that changes name is the actual license plate portion of it. So now it's a lot easier. There's no safety that needs to be done. The only thing that the person taking over the lease may want to do is have an inspection done by whether it's a Mercedes-Benz, whether it's a Nissan, whether it's an Infiniti, they may want to have the vehicle checked out. The one thing that you will have to get in both cases is a CarProof. Carfax or CarProof, we don't endorse either one. I think that actually CarProof might be more complete and it offers more up-to-date information. But that's up to you, who you run it through. But you will have to have a CarProof just for peace of mind to the person that is actually taking the lease over from you. Maintenance history on the vehicle. It's important that when you get your vehicle serviced, and that's a topic that we're going to touch on next week, is that you actually, when you get your vehicle serviced, have them stamp your books. It saves the hassle of having to show somebody that you did the maintenance and you tell them, and now you got to look for invoices. The reality is that if it's on the maintenance schedule book that they provide you from the manufacturer, most service places don't bother to stamp them. But if you emphasize that you want to get your service stamped, scheduled, and told when it was done and everything, that saves a lot of headaches. And actually telling the person that's taking over, look, the book is right here. It's stamped by this dealership. It's being maintained at a dealership, so you know for sure that the vehicle has been taken care of properly. We're going to go to the next slide right here for you. Now let's go to the lease transfer itself. It's slightly easier to process a lease transfer simply because, as I mentioned, you do not have to have a safety aspect of the vehicle. Everything is just a matter of submitting a credit application by the new person that's taking over the obligation to the finance company. They could take anywhere, I would say, from 48 to 72 hours to get an approval. And then it usually takes another 48 to 72 hours for the dealership to get paperwork. This is not generated by the dealership, so they have no say in how long the lease transfer takes. In most cases, dealers sometimes do not want to do this simply because it's a little bit more complicated. It's a lot easier to just take negative equity and make you pay for it. I believe in saving the customer. The customer comes first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Our priority is to you. Our obligation is to you, and to make this as painful, as painless as possible, and make sure that you keep your money in your pocket, or as much money as you can in your pocket. That's what we try to do at takemyleaseover.ca. The paperwork, once received by the dealership, both parties will have to actually show up at the dealership and actually sign the paperwork. This has to be witnessed by one of the finance managers at the dealership. Not necessarily do you have to show up at the same time. Some of the time we do manage to combine that both people show up at the same time at the dealership to sign, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. We can combine different times of it. The good thing about it is that we're going to walk you right through this whole process and you won't have to do anything. The licensing will be done by the dealership that is actually performing the lease transfer. You don't have to run around or anything like that. What you will need to provide is, as somebody that's taking over a lease, you will have to have your insurance in place, and you will have to have basically an active driver's license, of course, because they require that for Ontario. We're going to go to the next slide right here. I hope you have enjoyed this presentation. I'm trying to keep them short. I don't want it to get too complicated. My email address is albert@takemyleaseover.ca. Our numbers are right on our screen, 1-844-825-3695. My direct cell number is 416-300-2595. Again, my name is Albert Oliveira. Thank you for turning into our channel. If it's not useful information to you, pass it on to somebody that you know that may help them. Okay, and I look forward to your emails and of course comments on the line below. Please subscribe to our channel. Have yourselves a wonderful week.